Good morning. It is 9:30, and welcome to the May 1st meeting of the Volusia County Council and the public participation. At this time, we're here for those of you who have filled out a card and would like to address us on any issue. Seeing that there are no cards filled out, we will end the public participation portion and meet you back here at 10 o'clock for the County Council meeting. Thank you. Have a great day. Good morning. We will be starting the meeting in 5 minutes. Just a little 5-minute warning till liftoff. So thought I would let everyone know that. You still have plenty of time. 5 minutes. We have probably about 15 seconds till the meeting starts. You all are being very nice and quiet. Actually, there was less than 15 seconds because it is 10 o'clock, and we'll call the meeting May 1st meeting of the Volusia County Council to order. And At this time, we're going to ask Dr. Dan Glenn, the senior pastor of the Stetson Baptist Church in DeLand, to offer an invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask the council if you'll stand. Those of you who desire to do so may as well.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for this council. We thank you for our county, for our home. And God, we pray that you would direct the decisions and initiatives of this county towards you and towards your glory for the betterment of the people that live here. Father, we know that many of the issues that face this council are multi-layered, very complex. And so, Father, we just pray that you would give them wisdom. God, that you would help them to know decisions to make, and God, just that you would direct their steps. Thank you, Father, for each one of them. Thank you for their service. And God, we pray that you would be not only with the members of this council, but God, with anyone that participates in this meeting today. God, that you would be honored by everything that is done here. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You too.
May we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Dr. Lowry?
Here.
Mr. Patterson? Here. Ms. Post?
Here.
Ms. Wheeler? Here. Ms. Cusack? Here. Ms. Denny's?
Here.
And Mr. Kelly?
Here.
All are present.
All present. And this time we'll have any comments that may be by the council on consent agenda, or Mr. Nanine, you okay?
I have none, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to pull item K for discussion.
Pull item K.
Presentation. Yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda absent item K?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Post. Any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes unanimously. Can we go to item K?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Item K, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rechtenwald, before you begin though, I pulled this council because the previous council was very involved with this issue at the jail with a health provider. Remember that council? We had a provider called Corizon, and we put that contract out to bid, and the council voted for Armor, the current provider at the jail for services. It's time to look at the contract yet again for a lot of good reasons. However, my concern is it's not just about numbers. It's not just about data out at the jail, which is why Corizon is no longer a service provider in Volusia County. Because when we looked at that and drilled down, and was actually quoted in AP News article on Corizon, and everything in Volusia was part of that, was their financial stability and some lawsuits that they were involved with, not just in Volusia County, but nationwide. So when we look at these issues as a council, it's not just the lowest provider with a bottom line on this. There's too much more involved with our inmates, our citizens, and the whole approach that we provide out at the jail. We need to strengthen some issues. We need to take a look at parts of this contract. But I've been following this particularly for years. So my concern when I spoke with Mr. Rechtenwald about this and the manager is, I don't want this just to be numbers driven, because it's not just numbers driven. There's people associated with this. There's lives involved with this. There's interaction with other agencies and service providers. So there's a multiple network that we engage to provide services out at the jail. So with that, and I spoke with Mr. Deneen before this meeting, I'm not comfortable with turning this all over to yet another consultant to come back and tell us what we want to do. I don't mind summaries and executive summaries, but I think this council, and Councilwoman Cusack, you remember those, we had some tough decisions on health care and how we do that out at the jail. I think this decision stays at the council level. I don't mind input from a consultant, but I want the council, for me, I want to stay engaged in this because there's too much at risk not to. So with that, that's why I pulled this council. I'd like to see us stay engaged at this level for our citizens at the jail. So Mr. Rechtenwald,
I'll
if
deal
you
with
could,
this.
if you could take it from here and explain a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
I'd let him explain. Let me make sure I understand. And I think I do. Deb and I talked about this. The council has the right under what we call Schedule D we don't do this too often because it becomes very cumbersome. And that is where we bring you in front of the dais qualified candidates, and then you end up making a decision. We only do that on some really big things because you couldn't run the government, try to do it on every contract that we do. If the council so chooses in this case, we can do that. It's not a problem. Now, obviously, we don't bring people to you that are not qualified. Usually it's the top 3 that are qualified. Then they'll make their full presentations out here. The council will make final decision. I couldn't agree more with Ms. Denny's that it's more than just numbers. Numbers are really important because it's a lot of money. But the way I think we're restructuring, and George will get into this, I think it'll be in our best interest without affecting who the provider is, which is important because there were some things in the way the contract's structured right now where it wasn't an incentive to the contractor to save us money in a way if we have a direct relationship that gets us a better price with hospitals. So we're going to fix all that, and we keep getting better and better at this. And Mr. Robinson's great to have on board because he's really opened our eyes to how this should work, and he's really good at understanding more than most people the details behind this. So with that being said, we'll schedule this. That's further down the pike, quite a ways down, but we'll schedule this as a Schedule D.
And Mr. Deneen, and you're right, this is no reflection on the consultant and their performance. They did a great job for us on our health care. But I don't know what the experience in this particular consultant is on a project this big in the layers at the jail. So you can specialize in healthcare and be totally out of the arena
Right.
on this one. So while, and I see staff shaking their head, yes. So,
Right.
so while I think the input is good and bringing maybe the top 3 like we did previously. And, but my concern is, and I'm still going to stay public, I don't even want to see Corizon bid on it because that's a big zero for me from the beginning.
Well, there's some criteria in about where they
Has to
stand,
be.
what lawsuits they have, what experience we had with them. I'm sure that we are going to have a lot of competition. I'm sure we'll have at least 2 or 3 that are really qualified. But we'll schedule a Schedule D if the council would like, and that will be not until later in the future. And I do understand because of it's very sensitive on the issues we have with healthcare with inmates. And it's really important subject. And it ain't all about the numbers, but we have to try and make the numbers work too.
Understandably so. Thank you. And that's why I wanted to pull. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to weigh in on this.
Got Ms. Post?
Okay.
I've been following this as well, especially with the correction side. I've talked to Director Flowers and with staff on many levels about this. The management side, I think, is something that we really need to be looking at. And again, there were some, I won't say failures, but some, what's the word you're using?
Maybe some holes.
Holes. Okay, some things that maybe we could be doing better in that area. But when we're talking about $1 million in transport and $9 million in care, that's an extensive budget. But I think this falls into quite a few areas in corrections that we could be and are looking at to sort of reboot and ensure that they're done efficiently, that they're done correctly. And so I think it's fantastic that we have someone coming in to actually come up with a plan to reboot. And that was one of the questions I had was, have they done this before? and they have not done corrections before. But then another question I had was, well, has anyone else in the state really had this? And I didn't find anyone that had someone come in to, had a consultant to come in to look at their healthcare system in the jails as well. So I look at this as a good thing for Volusia, so that we're maybe the starting point. Maybe other counties can look at this, and we can work with other counties as well to try and help reboot and ensure that our correctional system and everything is working well. I think it's 63% of all of the corrections budget comes from mental and opioid care, which, think about that, 63% of our corrections budget. That is insane, right? So
Of the healthcare
this is,
side, yes.
this is definitely an area that we need to be looking at. Thank you.
Ms. Cusack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that I applaud Ms. Dennis for pulling this, because we do need to have some discussion on this issue. I am concerned about healthcare always, and we don't want our folk that are part of our system to be worse off when they leave us than when they came to us. So we need to do all we can to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the health care of our inmates. I think that's a good thing that we have this, we take this contract so that Robinson and Bush can help point out some of the things that we need to do. I also think that the committee is a good thing, that they will be able to screen and look at, just like we had a committee when we did the health care for our employees. I think, but at the end of the day, I think that you would make the recommendations of not one provider, but the top 3 providers, and then we would hear their presentations at the end of the day and make that decision, not come to us with a recommended contractor. So I think we're on the right track. I think that we just need to make sure that we maintain the integrity, and that we, at the end of the day, hear at least from the 3 of our folk that are interested in providing those health care services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I think you understand the message. This, however, does not affect anything other than to do the contract. That's the one part, but then you have the direction, I believe, from council to proceed onward with allowing them to come back and make the presentation. So we need a motion for the renewal of the contract. Unless you have more questions. You don't want to do that?
Let's clarify that. Is that how you're reading the
Yes.
direction?
Yes, and
We've got that, yeah, that's exactly right. And then what you have before you today, just to clarify, this is just Mr. Bush, who already has a contract with us, Mr. Robinson Bush firm, already has a contract with us, and has already done some work in terms of helping us do some research. And this is just renewal of that contract so he can continue.
Right.
But he is not making any decisions. He cannot make any decisions. But he helps put things into a matrix that make things a little bit easier to understand. We have a director, Mark Flowers, and his staff, many of his staff have been handling these contracts for years, a lot of experience. They've also gone out to other correctional facilities as part of this process to see what everyone else is doing. So there's that element of it, but Mr. Robinson's element is it is a technical advisor and just some of the areas that we may not have that expertise, just like we do with softwares and engineering and other things like that, where he has a higher understanding of maybe some of the finer points of billing and insurance and that type of stuff.
so here's what we'll do. It's been very clear. I think that I'm very pleased if the council we don't do Schedule D too often because it takes up sometimes a half a day and it's a lot of work. But this is such a big issue, and Ms. Post pointed out, we are way ahead of other people when it comes to how we deal with health care on our inmates. It's been a big issue here in Volusia County. I'm proud of what we do. And so what we're doing with Ms. Robinson is going another step further to try and make sure that we get good health care, but we also watch our costs. We'll be ready with the committee we have, because you should have good competition, to get it down to 2 or 3 good candidates. And then you'll go through an interview process here. All this does is it tells me today, go ahead, this starts the process, but this is months in the making. And then we'll schedule something, and it'll probably be in the fall for you to make a decision.
Mr. Patterson.
I just, I've known this group of Robinson Bush for over 20-some years, because when I was chair of the Personnel and Finance Committee there at ACT Corporation, we were really struggling with our health care benefits for our employees there. They came in, they strictly just were consultants. They were not getting paid any commission from any insurance company that they recommended. It was strictly as a consultant basis. And they really saved us a lot of money, and we ended up with a lot better health care for acting employees. And I know the job that they did for us recently. So I have all the faith in the world with John and his group to do us a good job. I think an analysis of what we're paying for is going to really be shocking to a lot of people, because I've talked to, matter of fact, just a week ago, a gentleman who worked for Volusia County, who went over and was working with the Sheriff's Department in Seminole County, and he was amazed at the number of operations that they ended up paying. When I say operation, people actually getting arrested so they could get a free operation, hernia repair and all these things. So we're going to find a lot of things that are just going to, you're stuck with. That's the problem. You can't just say, oh, well, you need something done and throw them out. So we end up paying for a lot of stuff that is going to be tremendous cost to us now and in the future also. So I think maybe we can get a better handle on all this. So.
Ms. Post.
So I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the contract with Robinson Bush Inc. for healthcare and benefits consulting, with the understanding that staff will come back to us with the possible companies to choose from.
Will do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Denny's, any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection, the motion carries unanimously, and we will now move item 2, unless I... And this is a public hearing, and we'll go ahead and take the staff report, I'm assuming. Actually, there was a discussion of this item yesterday, a meeting of the mayors. It is a public hearing. I have 3 individuals who would like to speak to us. I'll take those comments first. Skip Lilly.
Morning. My name's Skip Lilly, and I'm the 2018 chair of the Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce. Last week, our board of directors supported the proposal to place a half-cent sales tax on the referendum for a vote of the citizens of Volusia County. As we state in our position, the chamber's prime concern is that Volusia County's 12-cent share of the state's gas tax, its main source of transportation funding, has suffered decline since 2007. And has left the county with insufficient revenue for new and improved road projects in the coming years. Many local cities, which also get a portion of the state's gas tax, face similar shortfalls. The need for funding for infrastructure projects is now, however, with the recent state legislator requiring the audit of the governing body who will be administering the tax, and the fact there'll be 13 constitutional amendments on the ballot, we agree that the timing for this may be challenging. We will work to educate area residents and businesses on the importance of this half-cent sales tax increase while looking at various options for infrastructure funding. We stand by our position that a half-cent sales tax is a more fair revenue option based on estimations that more than 40% of the funding will be derived from visitors to the area. Also important to note is that the additional half-cent sales tax can also be leveraged by county and cities who need a revenue source to secure state and federal grants to pay for new road construction and maintenance, as well as water-related infrastructure projects. Whether the referendum occurs in 2018 or 2019, we stand by to support this as an important step towards funding important infrastructure needs for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Joe Yarborough?
Hello, my name's Joe Yarborough. I'm the city manager of South Daytona and I chair the Volusia Managers Association. As many of you were there yesterday, you heard our position, but let me repeat it for the record. We had the managers of 16, 17, including George, was on a conference call last week on this very issue before you today. And what we know in our industry is that there's three important things you have to remember. Details, you have to pay attention to details. Perception, how you're perceived. And the final one's timing. I think we've done a great job getting here today. I think that the details have been administered properly. I think we could do a little bit better on our perception, but we're holding our own. But Gerald, the most important thing on any policy is timing. And we came to the conclusion, not one manager disagreed, that the timing was wrong right now. And I think we all know why. We've got an audit that we didn't expect. We've got a ballot that, good grief, you better hope it gets mailed to you, as Ms. Lewis pointed out yesterday. And we have some other wrinkles that need to be addressed, and I hope this body will do that regarding the impact fee between now and when this is brought back before this body and ask for a referendum. I anticipate that new resolutions will be circulated by the cities. And I want to remind you, 78% of the registered voters in this county live in a city. 93% of your non-farm jobs are in a city. 77% of the people in this county live in a city. If you want to know where the sources for those quotes are, I'll be glad to provide them for you. They have to have a clear message. We're getting off of our message. We're finding ourselves into the weeds more than we should, rather than, look, this is what we can do with this. We know you're on board. We know you know the importance of this infrastructure, half-cent sales tax. And I want to thank the chamber. That was a bold move. Thank you very much. We've garnered a lot of support. We have the Hotel Motel Association on board. We have the Team Volusia that's endorsed it. A lot of the business communities come out. I've got a schedule of talks here coming up next month. I don't know if I'm going to hold them now with the Rotary clubs and the various organizations, or whether I'm going to push them down the road. But the managers are respectfully asking that you consider not holding the referendum on November 6th.
Thank you, Joe. Mayor Bob Apgar.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Bob Apgar, Mayor DeLand, 120 South Florida Avenue. I'm here in my capacity as chair of the Leadership Roundtable. As Mr. Yarborough alluded to, we met yesterday. We had discussion, and it was of those members present, it was their considered opinion that, you know, a postponement was the best thing to do for the reasons that have been enumerated in the media and by others. Please remember that this is one of the first times that Volusia County cities have spoken with one voice. 16 cities have all adopted similar resolutions, and as Mr. Yarborough alluded to, the support of those cities is there. Again, because those resolutions called for a date certain in the election, we've got to go back and, as Mr. Yarborough suggested yesterday, amend those resolutions. And again, while there's somewhat of a, I won't say difference of opinion, nobody had a firm idea exactly as to when the election should be held. But I think it's important, again, I'll use a sports analogy, that we treat this as a rain out with a date determined, you know, in the future. It doesn't need to be a specific date, but we need to have a target. The cities have a lot of momentum that's been created to do this. A lot of our staffs have worked tirelessly to try to assemble projects for this. We've met with county staff on the situation of the land to work on county roads within our jurisdiction. For example, we have 3 workshops scheduled in May. We have no need for those, but knowing about when the election is going to be would be very helpful, so we can reschedule those kinds of things. And I think that's not unique to the city of DeLand. Again, you know, the cities are still, at least from the roundtable members, are in favor of continuing yesterday. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think, you know, when I say a target date, you know, spring, April, May, I mean, that kind of thing I think would be useful and helpful for all of us to go back and begin to work, and also would allow us to amend our resolutions uniformly. So, any questions?
Does anyone have a specific question for Mayor Apgar? If not, we will conclude the public participation. Bob, thank you, and thank you, you and everyone for their hard work on this issue, bringing it forward. Billy, we'll close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to just read what I had my comments yesterday during this meeting. Taxes are never a popular topic, but it is extremely important that when we move this forward, we include discussion on another non-popular topic of impact fees. We need the discussion and possible increase in impact fees. I am very aware the cost filters down to new homeowners, as well as the fact that impact fees will not bring in enough to cover the stated needs. However, it needs to be part of the discussion. To continue without this conversation is not addressing the ongoing needs now and going forward. We do not need to continue the cycle of being behind the 8 ball. The cities have stepped up with a historical, unified voice to agree and pass resolutions to forward to the county for the need and the desire to support the 1/2 cent sales tax referendum to be placed on the ballot. I am grateful for the efforts mainly by Joe, Ed, Bob, and the CEO Alliance. It is absolutely essential that we pass this sales tax to accomplish our stated needs when we choose to do this. It is the county's job to address the impact fees that could jeopardize the success of this issue, whether it be now or in the future. We are doing a disservice to our constituents by not addressing the elephant in the room. I understand this is not a popular topic, and I understand all the ramifications that may result from my decision to address this topic. However, it is the right thing to do. Impact fees need to be part of the discussion and a possible part of the solution. And I think we need to address that sooner than later. I don't want to come 4 months, 5 months down the road, or next spring with the topic of moving this sales tax forward without having a solid conversation on the impact fees. And I would like us to schedule that discussion. However we go about it, I would like it scheduled as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's allow the leeway on that, because unfortunately, including the impact fees in the discussion as part of what has derailed or brought to light this issue, I'd like to keep that separate from what we're addressing today. Well, you can say no, and I can say yes.
Yeah,
How about that?
I feel strongly that this is a big part.
They are connected because they're connected. They are not what we're discussing today, right now. What we're discussing right now is whether or not to put this on the ballot for November. And what we've been asked to do is to take no action on this. If you want to take action on the impact fees, I'm behind you 100%. But let's not confuse this with the impact fees. They are connected. And I think I hope we all understand that they are connected. But they are not really germane to the decision we need to make right now of this issue. I mean, I can ask for a ruling from the attorney or from Pat Patterson or anyone else who says whether or not it is. To me, the discussion on the impact fees is one we need to have.
Isn't that up to the council as to whether or not it's germane and not?
That's a matter to the chair. If you want to put another chair here, he can make that determination. I mean, the way that we've operated before is when you're discussing, you discuss items that are relevant to the issue.
Well, I think this is relevant to the issue.
Okay? I mean, we can talk about anything.
I think we can discuss anything, but as the chair says, it is really not germane to the issue that is before us right now.
Right.
It is a part of the discussion that we need to have, but as it relates to item 2, as presented to us, that is not a part of that. Right now, what we need to do is make a decision whether or not we want to have to postpone the referendum for the ballot. That is what that's, unless I'm wrong on that now. Mr. Attorney, you need to tell us if because to me, that is discussion we have to have about impact fees. And I don't have a problem with that, but it is not germane to what we need to do at this time, according to item 2, as it is presented to us. And that's all I'm,
And what they have asked you is they want to continue supporting it, but they would like for us to not take action on yes, no, or a time to do that. And we can include the discussion on the impact fees as much as I'll do a workshop and make it all day long to discuss it. I'll gather all the information we need to do on the impact fees and look at everything in it. But let's move on this issue right now, and whether or not the correct parliamentary procedure would be to take no action, which would allow it to come back at any time.
Mr. Chair, what's up right now is the ordinance 2018-11, and whether or not we're going to pass it, that ordinance. If we're not going to pass it, then we just need to do nothing at this point.
Correct. Nothing.
Okay.
That's
The
correct.
ordinance is the only thing that we're really discussing right now. Now, the issues that Mrs. Wheeler has can be after we dispose of this ordinance 2018-11.
So we
That
just-
was my point. Sorry if I got short with you, but I think in the few years that I've been watching this be done, I think it is the correct procedure. And so we don't need a motion to take no action, do we?
Right, no.
So I would suggest we take no action at this point on the issue, leave it open to revisit a time and so forth, and move on this item.
Mr. Chair,
I have others that would,
okay, but we need to have a strong discussion, thank you.
pardon,
Yeah, we're still going to have discussion, though.
on
We're going to
this.
move on, but yes, we're still discussing this issue.
Dr. Lowry.
It's time to take up the next issue here with the,
Yeah, I mean, I was going to, we don't need to make a motion to do nothing.
Okay.
So, but anyway, what I was going to suggest is that we do have some discussion on timing. If I heard Mayor Apgar properly, the cities, and I applaud that. That's incredible. I mean, I've been around here a long time. Some of you have been longer than I have. That bring all the cities together in agreement on that has just been incredible. And so I think we do need to kind of shoot for some kind of a date. It was suggested next spring, April, May. That sounds good to me. If that's pleasing to the rest of the council, I would like to suggest, I don't know if that needs to be made in the form of a motion, but does that need to be made in the form of a motion? I'll be glad to do that.
Well,
Mr. Eckert?
the thing about it is the ordinance that we're voting on has the time on there in the ordinances that have been adopted.
We're not voting on any ordinance.
I understand that.
Yeah.
He wanted to set a time for it to come back, which is, I don't think we should right now set a time.
I think we need to really have a complete discussion on this issue, because it's not only county impact fees, but the cities have impact
Right.
fees that need to be taken into consideration, because I know several of the cities don't have any road impact fees. Some have
I thought
not-
you didn't want to talk about impact fees, Mr.
I don't want to
Patterson.
talk about impact fees.
Oh,
I'm
if you're
just
going to
trying
open
to,
that door, we're going to go through it.
the discussion that we have in April or May or whenever. So I'm saying is we just need to have these discussions later on.
Okay, I'm finished. Thank you.
So we're going to take no action on this right now, including not setting a time certain. If we're going to do that, we would do something with a time certain motion. So they've asked for that. We can work on that at a point in time. I understand that they are going to be working on a date to come back with a revised ordinance at a point. So if they do that, then we would have a time that we could arrive at what works for setting an election and so forth. Ms. Post.
When you say they are working on a time frame,
Joe Yarborough, the managers, and the roundtable,
okay.
all 16 cities. Ms. Dennis? Was that it?
No.
Oh, sorry. If you stop to breathe, I'm going to move on.
Occasionally I have to do that.
All right.
The, I wanted to make sure that we're also talking about, we're saying we need to have a solid conversation on the impact fees, but I think this is an excellent opening as well to, we've been talking for over a year and a half on the council sitting down and actually having a workshop on our priorities. And I think that's an excellent opening to sit down and actually look at what our priorities are as this council moving forward.
I'm going to have to stop you because that's as far as a point of order we are discussing right now. We can discuss that in closing comments, but right now let's keep it germane to the issue.
Okay. I thought we were taking no action and we had moved on and now
Well,
we're in
I guess
discussion.
everyone wanted to
Okay,
say
that's all I
whether
had
they-
to say.
Okay, people want to say what they want to say is taking the action, no action. Ms. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And council needs to have open discussion on this today, even if there's no action. And here's why. I've sat through elected leaders roundtables and listened to mayors and managers talk. Our cities have talked at least twice, each city twice on this issue. And this council has yet to have a back and forth discussion on the issue that after they make their decisions come to us and we are the exclamation point on the issue. So that alone, council, I think we need to have discussion on this, and I've been waiting for this discussion. This is the time that we do it when we're in our chambers, not at our city commission meetings. We can certainly comment during public participation time at these events like we all do. But impact fees do play a part in this, and here's where I'm going to connect it. I am not going to agree to setting a date to put this on the ballot for the future until we settle the impact fee issue for me. So I'm going to tie it right there. We have to balance the scales for our constituents, and it's an appearance, true or not, it's an appearance that it's an unjust balance to our citizens, that we're going to ask them to support a half-cent sales tax, but not require more in a review of the impact fees. And you're right, Mr. Patterson, it's not just a county. We have 16 cities, and I would like to know in this discussion going forward where they are in their impact fees and when the last time they have increased their road transportation impact fees, if they have them at all. I think the surprise would be some don't have any at all. And we just heard that 78% of our residents live in cities. So while the buck stops here legally on the ballot issue, to lay it all here, and while yes, indeed, we do need to take a look at it, I'm in complete agreement with that. But I won't go forward with one without the other. I personally won't do it. So I don't think now is the time for us to say there's been a request for this spring to put it on the ballot. That's way too soon. Until we make this an issue for our citizens and we discuss this, and the cities discuss their transportation impact fee, and it's a fair playing field across the board, then I will consider it. And here, without growth, 44, we're talking transportation and the need for it, and there is a need for it. I will tell you, I've struggled with this because I chair the Flagler-Volusia Transportation Planning Organization, 2 counties, 18 cities, 2 school boards, and multiple other organizations that serve on this transportation planning organization. When FDOT came before us, 4 months ago, telling us the increases in costs everywhere from 28 to 43% on cost of putting in a road or bridges and everything that goes with it, every component, including the man hours. When we have to absorb costs like that, granted they're federal, they're state dollars, there's some county dollars, they're matched from all the cities, all the cities. When those costs go up that big, projects go down. That doesn't mean the need goes down. It means the costs are just going, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. And in New Smyrna Beach on 44 is stopped to 95 most weekends, and if not just weekends, when the summer hits, it'll probably be during the week too. Forget any of this other development growth. Let's say none of it happens. In a normal 2% growth, New Smyrna Beach is about 22,000 residents.
Ms. Denny's, I've allowed a lot of flexibility and freedom. This is not getting us, I don't think, where we really need to go on this issue.
I'm trying to make my point for growth and transportation and impact fees, Mr. Chair. And honestly, I've listened to a lot of meetings. This is our time to talk, and genuinely, we need to do this. So just with growth in New Smyrna, 2%, it's going to be another 440 people, but it's Orange and
Ms. Dennis,
Seminole are roads.
Ms. Dennis, you're out of order on this. This is not the time to do that. And we're asked to make a no decision on the issue before us. I will sit here for weeks discussing what you're discussing, but I just don't believe this is the appropriate time with what we're having, the discussion, to go into the weeds on the growth and everything, because we had a workshop, if you remember, on impact fees, which I think was requested. We had that several months ago on impact fees that were brought before us. We have all the statistics on that, and I think we all would be willing to do that, to look at the impact fees, to see what needs to be done. But let's try to move the meeting along on this part of it, of the issue. And you can certainly have a position of saying you're not going to do anything. I might remind you that maybe the roundtable the cities may just need to come back and say, we want you to put it on all 16 cities. We have no choice, because they far exceeded that demand. To go back and put demands when all 16 cities are asking us to put it on, to try to now tie that to something, I think is a little bit disingenuous, but I'll leave that as a, let's try to speak to this issue. We can finish item 2 and discuss all you want on these other things that are around it, I think. And if the council wants to vote to overrule me, so be it.
I think what we have here, Mr. Chair, is a very uncomfortable conversation that has to happen very publicly. And
well, let's do that at an uncomfortable time or comfortable time.
it's council's choices. I've made my statements. I'm gonna stand by them.
Okay, Ms. Wheeler.
Yes, I have to concur with Commissioner Denny's. I am not willing to set a date to project to put this on the ballot again until we have this discussion. And I think we need to decide when we're going to have this discussion, and it needs to be an active discussion. I regret that in January this topic was brought up, and I believe Commissioner Denny's brought it up, said that we need to think about it. And we did have a somewhat workshop. I will say, as I have become more educated on it, this is a major factor in determining whether this is going to go forward, in my opinion. So I am not willing to set a date until we discuss this openly.
Okay, I think we're not being, they have asked us to set a date. I have not asked you to consider setting a date. I'm asking us to take no action, and we can come back and set a date and a time after the discussion we have on the issue and all those issues that are around it. I think that's the way we need to proceed, is just to do no action, no yes, no date, and then we take the action we want to do as a council, which we have the right to and obligation to do, and that is to discuss those other issues.
And when will we choose to discuss those other issues?
That should come at the closing comments.
Okay.
We can set that time. Ms. Cusack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a perfect example of what can happen when you begin to backpedal on an issue that you have been working on for months now, years. Because we want now to change the timing, the date, which was to have it on the ballot at the November election. So the consensus seems to be that that's not the appropriate time to do that. We need to be mindful of the fact when we change this date that this kind of discussion will be, the backroom discussions on all issues that could impact this vote will begin to raise its head. So I don't mind delaying putting this as a ballot initiative, but I do want you to know that things will change, and we may never get where we are today or where we were yesterday as it relates to putting this on the ballot. And we may never have this council to approve it or the 16 cities to agree upon it, because there are too many irons in the fire. And when you begin to muddy the waters as to where you're trying to go, everybody has opinions as to what we should or should not do. So your councils will change. That will be an issue. This council could very well change. That will be an issue. So there are many things that we have to consider, that the ramifications of delaying this vote or delaying putting this on the ballot will cause us as governing bodies to make no decision, or we will not be able to get the consensus of 17 different entities. So, Mr. Chair, I think that our position today, I mean, it gives me heartburn that we're doing this, but it's where we are, and I just want to make sure that we all are mindful of the ramifications that we may never get to this place anytime in the near future, based on what we're hearing and what everything begins to unravel. And that's not a good thing. So, Mr. Chair, if it was be in order, I would ask that we would move the agenda and take no action today on this issue, but be mindful of where we are and what we are doing. Thank you.
Ms. Wheeler.
Yeah, I agree. This can bring on many ramifications. However, you know, we were elected by the people to make wise decisions, and we have had a long period of time to come to this decision, but there have been a lot of factors that have been thrown in front of it. What the government has done, what the legislator did, the ballots that we had, there are a lot of things that came into play on this decision. I think it's wise of us as the council to look at everything that came in after the decisions were made that we were moving forward on it, and be wise enough to say, we've got to sit back and reevaluate. You know, there's some things here that have occurred that has changed our course. Maybe not the end result. Yes, elections will play in it because there are people who have voted on this in cities that may not be there. However, I have to believe that this issue is strong enough and the need is great enough that it's going to be good next year also. But people are going to be more educated, and we're going to have more information on the impact fees. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Dennis.
Just a closing comment on this particular one. Since we're doing no action today, there's nothing to preclude us from still submitting this to OPAGA. Is there, Mr. Manager? I think it would be beneficial. Let's go through this exercise and consider going through the audit, because I think we're strong there. That doesn't concern me at all, especially with our capital projects update and what we do here with council. So it might be in everybody's best interest, in a very good faith move and transparency on our part, to submit this to the state and go through that exercise with OPAGA. Now would be a good time to do that.
The only thing I can do is I can ask them how they would like us to proceed, if they would do it. The one thing we have going for us is whether you do it today or a year from now, there's no data because the program never started. So it doesn't matter what your analysis is today, it will be germane to 6 months from now. It's an interesting question. I do think it takes a lot of pressure off, because I think that way, instead of rushing to get it 60 days in front and put on our website, you could vet it even more if you had it ahead of time, and you'd know, maybe you'd get a better job. There's always been that question about how much information they're going to need from the cities too, which we never got answered,
Right.
because normally this is a county initiative only. So I would be glad to ask and see what they would do. I could tell them that there's a lot of interest in still moving forward, maybe in 19 or 20, for example, for sure, and that would they have any objections to go ahead and doing that, I could report back. But the one thing I can guarantee is, whether you do the analysis now or 6 months from now, it's going to be the same analysis.
I think that's a very good point, because I had concerns as soon as we found out about Opaga and the delay and the fact of even getting it all completed because of the unknown. So I think if we can proceed with that part of it, again, not having a time certain for an election, whether or not they would take it, that's a question they will answer. No need to discuss that now. If we can move forward to get that part done, that will satisfy the future.
I'll ask them, Mr. Chair. The only thing I can think of is they may say, look, because you haven't officially done that, you might have to pay the audit cost. I'll find out if that's the case, and we'll find out what it would cost.
Find out, and if we can.
But I'll report it back to you
Okay.
and let you know what they say.
And it's not all the hard work that's gone into this. It's what the issue would have accomplished for our community. And that's the people that are getting shortchanged on this. And that is the people that are still going to deal with the flooding, the water quality, the water quantity, all of the issues that we're going to face. They're not going to go away. And I know it was tied to the impact fees and the discussion. And I know there's things that can be done on that. But the impact fees, if the people did understand what we can use them for and what we can't use them for, I didn't say it was complex, but if it was that simple, everyone would understand that you can't use that to correct 44 and Kepler. You can't use that to create the traffic signalization on Dunlawton, or widen where you need to widen or change intersections of pre-existing conditions, if you want to say. So the impact fees can address those for the future, and this half-cent sales tax would have made it tolerable by being able to do what we could in moving forward. And I hope that it does come back. I have faith in the support of the community, the support of the elected bodies, the managers of the 16 cities, and our manager, that we will arrive at a time and place that we can get this on the ballot and have time to educate the public to know that this is a good situation. May find out that 50% of it is being paid by people outside of Volusia County and not 40%. So those numbers are very important of what we can do. They may be able to work something a little bit better in the formula for some of the smaller cities to give them a bigger voice, which would make it even better. Because you have all the cities that have gone out, as Mayor Apgar mentioned, they have 3 workshops to identify problems that need to be solved yesterday, last year, 2 years ago, 15 years ago, that are not going away. And the people are getting involved to letting us know. So we're going to take no action on this issue. We're not going to set a date. The council I will have scheduled as quickly as possible that staff can gather additional information from what we did on the impact fees, and we'll go forward with that. Just as an aside, over a month ago, I started talking to individuals in the building community right after we had our meeting. I started talking to various people. I was under the impression that that would come forward because I knew that that was important. It didn't come forward. I didn't push the issue. Now I'm just letting you know that I have been talking behind to people in the private sector to make them aware that we did need something done on the impact fees. And although I know the big bad developers don't pay it, we have to convince the people that we need to have that going forward for those projects which we have where they can address the issues to keep us to getting further than 15 years behind where we are right now. So with that, We will move to item 3. Again, thank everyone that was here on behalf of that today, and appreciate the time that was all spent. It was worthwhile. Mr. Irvin.
Good morning. Clay Irvin, Director of Growth and Resource Management. Today it is my pleasure to introduce you to Tom Brooks and his lovely wife, Kat. They're here to celebrate 30 years of service to Volusia County for Tom. And I've only been directly working with Tom for the last 2 years, but it's been my pleasure to work with him since 1994 when I moved to the area. I can't summarize his career, so with the council's indulgence, I'm going to let Palmer Panton summarize a 30-year career in 120 seconds.
You're on the clock.
Thank you. Palmer Panton, Planning and Development Services Director. Tom came to Volusia County at the tender age of 16 from Glens Falls, New York. He finished a high school at DeLand Heights and got his associate's degree from DBCC. He obtained his bachelor's degree from Stetson. He obtained a fellowship through the Joint Center for Environmental and Urban Problems at Florida Atlantic University, which was headed by Dr. John DeGrove, the first Department of Community Affairs Secretary. He then received his master's in public administration and growth management studies in '84. After receiving his master's, he attended Stetson Law School, but decided to pursue a career in planning. Tom's career, spanning over 30 years, has included professional planning positions in Lake County, Volusia County, Lakeland, and then back to Volusia County. In Volusia County, one of his first assignments was to work on the county's comprehensive plan adopted in 1990. His other accomplishments in Volusia include being a demographer, census coordinator, doing legislation research, reviewing city and other agency activities, maintaining the capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan, and the keeping of the annual capital improvement schedule. Tom also serves as the City of DeLand's Spring Hill Community Redevelopment Agency liaison. He reviews and tracks municipal comprehensive plan amendments, rezonings, and annexations, and he has participated for many years on the county emergency management team as an emergency support function 5, having lost countless hours of sleep during the fires of 1998 and during several hurricanes. Tom is active in the American Planning Association and has served for many years on the Florida's Legislative Policy Committee. He has also been involved for many years with the Surf Coast chapter of the Florida Planning and Zoning Association as a professional development officer. He also assisted with the Atlantic Coast section with hosting the 2017 Florida section of the American Planning Association Annual State Conference in Daytona Beach. Tom's hobbies include being a big fan of all types of sports. He can discuss almost any team with statistics. He is a chess enthusiast, movie buff who can recite lines from most movies, and was an avid racquetball player for a number of years, participating with other county employees. In retirement, Tom plans to move to Tennessee with his wife, Kat, and their 2 dogs. He intends to watch more sports, which might not go over so well with Kat. But we appreciate Tom's work over the years and wish both you and Kat success in your retirement.
Well, I've been here 42 years, and it's been quite a ride. Now, Joyce, I know personally, she's almost like a member of the family to me. Pat, I know you from the CRA board, worked with you a long time. Let's see, Mr. Kelly, we had you at a function at the airport, I believe a regional function in which you spoke. Ms. Denny's, you've been at several of our functions. The one I remember most was, I think we had the Space Center presentation over in New Smyrna Beach. Mr. Lowry, I think I dealt with you as a customer. One time, so. I haven't had a chance to meet you, Ms. Wheeler, or you, Ms. Post, but I'll tell you the most important thing we do as a county is dealing with people and helping them any way we can. It's the last 4 or 5 years I've had to deal with both customers over the counter and answering questions over the phone. And while it can be a frustrating thing, it's actually the most enjoyable thing because you're helping members of the public in a process that's totally confusing to them, very scary. You're giving them information to help them out. And believe me, there's a lot of joy to that. You can't always help them. It's not always possible, but that's, believe it or not, I'll miss that the most because I realized, one day a customer came in, I was looking through my old email, and she hugged me and called me Mr. Awesome, and I said, what are you kidding about? I just answered a question for you over the phone. But that's the thing about customer service. You may be talking to someone on the phone, but you're helping their life when you're answering questions, when things that are very confusing are suddenly made clear to you. And that part of the job, when I started out as a comprehensive planner, it's all academic. It's what you were talking about, impact fees and sales tax. Well, that's where I used to live. And it used to be 33%, now it's 40%, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's 50 in terms of revenue because we have a better handle of how we measure things. When I first came here, we had a 286 computer with a 40 megabyte hard drive. And in those days, those things cost $6,000. And now what we have is just so far above it. And a 9-pin dot matrix printer. Wow, I mean, it's just amazing in my 30 years of being in planning where we've grown. And it was a joy to work here. You have an excellent county manager. I'll tell you, when he came aboard in 2006, he saw what was happening to the economy here, and he got aboard before. Some people wait for the horse to escape the barn, and then they try to fix things. He got ahead of it because I can tell you throughout the state, and I know as a demographer, a lot of people didn't get ahead of it. And a lot of people lost their jobs and their careers. And I was here when that recession was about to hit, and he jumped on. He knew what was going to happen before it was. I could see it as a numbers person that this was possible, but it's still to be able to come in because it's hard to get people to do something before disaster happens, and he did. So I thank you very much. It's been a wonderful career for me. I'm going to a state that I don't have any relatives in or anything. It's just going to be a whole new adventure, just like it was. And I came here in 1974 because when my mother came down here in May, it was snowing in Glens Falls, New York. A snow day in May. So it's all I can say. I thank the council. Mayor Apgar isn't here, but I enjoyed working with him on the board. I'll probably, even though I'm officially retired now, I'll go to the meeting on the 7th and just sort of wave goodbye there. So. Well, thanks a lot, and I appreciate everything, being a longtime employee of Volusia County.
I think Ms. Cusack wants to say something before you depart and before we give you a standing ovation.
Mr. Chair, I'm just so delighted to have had the opportunity to know June Brooks, that's Tom's mom, and to see her little fella going into the sunset. This is a great day. You're such a smart young man. And he is such a statistician that he knows and remembers everything. I'm really blessed to have known Tom for this time. And Kat, it's good to see you. I knew Tom before there was a Kat.
Yes.
And so I'm so pleased that you were a part of this great county. You have done so much and silently. You can talk, you're quite a talker, so am I. But I know that you have made a difference in the workforce and in the people that you have served in Volusia County. And Tom, Volusia County is better off for you having spent some time and being a part of this great county. I applaud you and wish you well as you travel to Tennessee and maybe play a little chess and look at a little bit more football and basketball and hockey and so on and so forth. Find a little time to listen to the waterfalls in Tennessee and watch the changing of the leaves. And maybe once in a while you might give me a call and tell me to come on to Tennessee. The leaves are changing. I wish you well, and I know that great things will continue to happen in your future. We as a council are so honored that you have served the citizens of Volusia County, and we look forward to having you to come back and talk to us when we dedicate our new resource center in the Spring Hill area. You'll have to come or send us some message to let us know that you're watching us in this process. I love you, and you take care of yourself, and be good always to your cat. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
Mr. Chair. Tom, hold it.
I
Tom,
didn't tell him he could leave.
Tom,
Tom, hey,
Tom,
back.
one
Still
more,
employed?
one more comment.
Your manager said you had to come back.
Yeah, that's right. Still here.
No, if you
I'd hate to fire you right now. That would be. Bottom line is, Tom exemplifies the best in public service. But what he doesn't tell you is, because it is all about customer service. I mean, you got to do the right thing. What he's not telling you is, it's easy to be Mr. Awesome. It's when you got to tell people stuff they don't want to hear. Okay? And Tom has a reputation, as I was once told. I think this sums it up. I hope it doesn't offend anybody. But you know, he's the kind of guy who could tell people to go to hell and they'd be looking forward to the journey. I do want to say that I really do appreciate the leadership he's shown in terms of giving people that, exemplifying how you're supposed to deal with the public. That is a big issue here. We never forget all people like Tom behind the scenes that get all this done. But the good thing I can say is that while Tom leaves, he's not the only person with that characteristic. And I think he knows that almost everybody, without exception, tries to emulate that kind of way of dealing with the public. It really matters to the public on a day-to-day basis. Thanks for that part of your life in public service. I appreciate it.
And before you leave, Jeff wants to get some pictures, and you and your bride, I guess, come down and counsel.
You can start over there. Actually.
We're going to take a 10-minute break. 10 minutes. We'll see you back here at 11:22. We'll go ahead. It has been 10 minutes. Actually, it's been 11 and a half. We'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and reconvene the county council meeting at 11:23, and we'll move to item 4. Joanne.
Good morning, Joanne Magley, Community Information Director, and we have 3 new events to talk about since our last County Council meeting. On May 25th, we will be celebrating coastal enhancements. At 8:30 a.m., Vice Chair Deb Denny's will lead the county in cutting the ribbon to our new off-beach parking lot at Hiles Boulevard. That lot includes restrooms, showers, a bike rack, and 75 parking spaces. And then a little later at 10 a.m., we're going to move to Smyrna Dunes Park to celebrate the improvements that have been made there, which began in June of last year, 2017. Those improvements include the 8-foot wide boardwalk made with composite decking and handrails, which hold up well in our ocean environment, and the new boardwalk also provides ADA accessibility to the inlet and ocean beaches, scenic overlooks, and also access to the riverside, the fishing pier. And finally, on May 26th, we invite the community to come out to Jackie Robinson Ballpark for New York Night at the ballpark. Daytona Beach International Airport is teaming up again with the Tortugas as they take on the St. Lucie Mets. And so we invite everyone to stop by the airport's booth prior to the game, and they can enter to win round-trip tickets for 2 on JetBlue to New York City from Daytona Beach. And a final reminder that this Saturday, May 5th, is our celebration of the reopening of the Daytona Beach Regional Library and the opening of the Rachel Robinson Play Yard. So that is from 10 to noon this Saturday. And also this Friday, May 4th, the quarterly economic development breakfast at Daytona Beach International Airport. And Rob Earhart will have more on that in just a few minutes. So that's it for your events update. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. We'll move now to item 5. Speaking of Rob Earhart, here he is.
Good morning, Chairman Kelly, members of the County Council. Rob Earhart, Economic Development Director, here with the Economic Development Update for January, February, March of 2018. You have the presentation in your agenda packet, and for those listening, this is also available on our website, floridabusiness.org, under the Economic Reports page. So the first slide is a reminder that there is a broader measure of unemployment than the headline rate that we typically read about and hear about. The headline rate is the U3 rate, to be more specific, that BLS refers to. The broader measure is the U6 rate, and that's shown here in red as a dotted line. It's only available on the state level, but as you can see, there's about a 5% delta between the headline unemployment rate and the U6 rate. And the U6 rate is defined at the bottom of the slide, but it's basically those people that are either still looking for a job but haven't tried to do so in the last 4 weeks, or those that are discouraged. So, yes.
What, didn't they used to use the U6 all the time up until like the mid-'80s, or they changed it?
I don't know the
Yeah,
answer to that question.
I'm thinking that used to always use the U6, and then they changed over like in the late 80s to the U3. The U6 actually projects a better picture of unemployment. No, it was before that.
And Dr. Sean Snaith at the UCF Institute for Economic Competitiveness regularly reports on this as well. So I think Dr. Lowry, he would agree with your statement that it could be perhaps a more accurate reflection of what's really going on.
Thank you.
So the point of that is, again, as a reminder, and to just hopefully encourage local employers that are hiring and are looking for individuals that, they're going to have to work a little harder and a little smarter to go about finding those people. But there are resources in our community that they can take advantage of. The Chamber Advantage Series recently had a special session, a panel discussion about how do you find an employee when no one's looking for a job. The quarterly labor statistics slide you've seen regularly. I won't spend a lot of time on that. The trend comparison by major industry. Again, we see good year-over-year growth in our leading industries. Interesting to note in the construction industry, over 1,000 increase year over year. This is comparing the first quarter of this year to first quarter of last year. County and municipal employment by largest cities, that is those that report populations over 25,000. Just a preview that we believe the city of New Smyrna Beach will find their way onto this list here in the coming quarters. So we have new construction permits in the residential marketplace. You can see we've had a very good first quarter for roughly 550 permits. If we're going to hit something close to the 3,000 permits, though, for this calendar year, we're going to need to have a really strong second, third, and fourth quarter. You can do the math on that 3,000 minus 550 divided by 3. You know, we're going to need to come in the 700-800 number of permits per quarter range. If you were to compare that over the past 3 or 4 years, we've had year-over-year increases, total permits per year of about 250 per year. So again, this is going to need to be quite a ramp up in the second or third quarter for us to come close to that 3,000 number. To put 2017 into perspective, one other comment, that total was 1,981. That's 64% lower than the number of total permits in calendar year 2003.
Rob, stop right there. This, I think, has become forgotten. One of the issues when you talked about impact fees before was because, and this is what you're going to hear from the development community, is that yes, we may not be at the bubble of 7,000 units a year, but we used to do probably closer to 4,000. And so what I think what you're going to hear is that we finally made our way up to, 1,900, Rob, is that it's still anemic and that they don't believe we're as stable as we should be till we probably get to 3,000 or 4,000. So, I mean, it's good that we're growing, but we're not there yet.
No.
It's a market that's still healing. I have a document here from PNC. They do an economic outlook, and they are careful to use the word healing.
Right.
It's not healed. So here are the details by city, and again, we see our usual strong cities leading the way. And moving into commercial new construction permits, a pretty good quarter, quite a significant number of permits. The dollar value is very healthy, and I'll just name some of the specific projects. So Chairman Kelly, thank you for, and others, Ms. Post, joining us in Ormond Beach for the groundbreaking of Security First. That's a $30 million project. The founder of the company, as I recall, made the comment that he was losing sleep when the company was founded over taking on $5 million in debt, and here he is spending $30 million on a brand new headquarters. That'll be quite a signature element when you drive into Volusia County on Interstate 95. And that development is, they're not wasting any time getting after it, if you will, on the property. The Sheriff's Department Evidence Building, there's a ALF, the Brilliance Assisted Living Facility. It's going up in Edgewater. There's a storage facility in Deltona, development at Cornerstone in Daytona Beach, as well as several Margaritaville projects, and First Baptist Church building their new facility in Daytona Beach. So very healthy activity. And again, it's our belief that there are a lot of people outside the community that are coming to the community, still trying to put their finger on exactly what is the magic in Volusia County and all the great investment that's being made here. And if they just spend a little bit of time here, they learn that it's a great place to live, learn, work, and play. So you see the numbers, and I wanted to spend a little, for commercial permits, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this slide, slide 11, just so we don't forget that when a local business in any one of these industry super sectors hires a new employee, that's not where it ends. If you put any stock at all in firms like Implan that do economic modeling, and we do put stock in Implan. You see it used regularly throughout the business community to report on things relating to economic impact. So what this slide attempts to describe is for every one FTE in these 10 industries, as a direct employee, there is a ripple effect, if you will, in terms of indirect employees and induced employees. That ripple effect may or may not occur in that industry, but it is certainly generated by that industry. And so the numbers that you see in blue are representative of the type of impact that you have in additional FTE, again relating to indirect and induced. So if I may, if Rick Carl, the airport director, owned a business and he hired an FTE and I were one of his suppliers, in order for me to keep up with his growth, I may need to hire an additional employee in order to meet his new requirements, his increased requirements. That would be an indirect hire. And then the funds that his employee and my new employee spend in the community, restaurants, dry cleaners, coffee shops, and other places, that increase in their growth, they may need to hire another part-time employee or another full-time employee. That's what's represented by induced growth. So the combination of my indirect hire and the induced effect of our new hires in our community is the combination that you see in blue, indirect and induced.
It's interesting to see in the financial service area, 1.5 times for every FTE direct. The indirect is greater than that. I mean, to me, that stood out. And then what also stood out to me was the lack of leisure and hospitality that you wouldn't necessarily create additional jobs.
So I'll just say that every job is a good job, and we want to encourage growth across all of these industries. But to your point, Mr. Kelly, you have a greater impact in terms of indirect and induced jobs in some industries as compared to others. And the next slide attempts to put some dollars to that in terms of the salaries that would be paid. So the salary figures you see in red, you've seen in a different format previously. Those are basically the annual average wage for that industry supersector. And then the dollar values that you see in blue are the Volusia County annual average wage times the FTE, or excuse me, the indirect and induced numbers that you saw on the previous page. So if you look to the right at the end of each bar, you can see, again, to Mr. Kelly's comment, the dollar values that are associated with that type of effect. To put this into even more specific context, the County Council voted to approve local financial support or some type of incentive support for 12 projects in fiscal years 16 and 17. And so this slide takes the concept of direct hires and indirect and induced job creation and relates it specifically to those 12 projects that have specific 6-digit NAICS codes that may change the influencer value that was represented on the slide 2 slides ago. So you're not going to be able to do the math here exactly using the numbers on the previous slides because into IMPLAN, when you get to a 6-digit NAICS code, it has very specific analytics that create these numbers. But again, the net is for the direct employment that you voted to provide some type of local financial support or other incentive support to for 12 projects total just over 1,000 jobs. If all those jobs are created, as those companies suggested they would, and if the IMPLAN multipliers play out, then we'll create over another 1,000 jobs in our community for the combination that you see in the column to the right. And again, to put dollars to that, pretty significant impact of $87 million. And so in case anybody is wondering, well, Rob, how much local financial support did we vote to put into those 12 projects? It's just under $700,000.
Wow.
Of general fund dollars that come out of Fund 130 that are leveraged by state dollars. The total county and state is just over $6 million. You can see from a job creation perspective has the potential to inject that $87 million if those jobs are created the way they were described by the companies in their application, and if the in-plan multipliers play out in our community. That's a pretty significant impact, and I'm not going to try to really change somebody's mind about, you know, some of the issues that the legislature has maybe struggled with on economic development, but I think these numbers are pretty compelling when you want to have a conversation about what is the value of making these types of decisions to incentivize companies to grow and create jobs. And that completes our report, unless you have any questions.
I think it's a different report than, I mean, it's not just like there. I mean, to me, it seem like there's more meat on the bone in this one or something that, or maybe I'm paying more attention to, huh?
The graphs are better. The graphics are much better.
Well, thank you for saying so. We hired a new employee back, Brad Harris, in November, and he is our data expert in our shop. And,
much easier to differentiate the different things, more readable, and so thanks for pointing out that it's different. I knew there was something. I thought maybe it might be my eye surgery, which I just had, but
No pie graphs.
Pardon?
That's what it is. There's no pie
yeah, I
graphs.
can't stand pie graphs. But
Noted.
anyway, nice.
Noted. So as Joanne said, we do have a breakfast scheduled for this Friday. Begins at 7:45. Chairman Kelly, I hope you'll be able to join us and kick the meeting off with Rick Carl's assistance promptly at 8 o'clock. We are going to broaden the discussion a little bit about workforce. If you've seen our Digital Economic Development Quarterly, our guest commentary is written this quarter by Robin King, who's the president and CEO at CareerSource. It's a great resource for local employers that are looking to hire. We have the first and second place winner of the recent Cairns Foundation Innovation Challenge, the 5th annual. Very excited. It's an entrepreneur competition for university level students in Volusia County. I think you'll be very excited to hear the elevator pitch from those two individuals. And then we have the Volusia YPG as our featured speaker. Their primary mission is to help attract and retain professional talent, young professional talent to our community. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Donna Butler, you are on stage, or at least at the edge of it. Item 6.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of council. Donna Butler, Community Services Director. At Ms. Wheeler's request, she wanted a little information about the health rankings that are done by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So there's a presentation that we're going to tag team. Patricia Boswell is going to speak first. She's our Volusia County Health Department Administrator. And then I'll come up. She's going to talk about the health rankings, give you a little more explanation than what you might normally get, and then also talk about some of their healthcare initiatives that address some of those concerns. And then I'll come back up and talk about a new initiative in addition to things that you're already supporting. So with that, Patricia?
Patricia Boswell. I'm the health officer for the Florida Department of Health in Volusia County. Good morning, Chairman Kelly, members of the council, Mr. Deneen. Thank you for this opportunity this morning to discuss the 2018 county health rankings. Each of you have received a packet this morning with the county health rankings inside, as well as additional information. So the 2018 county health rankings is put out annually by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The rankings indicate how healthy counties are across our country. In Florida, the 67 counties are ranked, and St. John ranks number 1, as they have for the past number of years. This reflects their residents' overall health being the healthiest in our state. Volusia County ranks 44 out of the 67 for the health outcomes, which includes how long we live and how healthy we are. So the priority areas for the health department here in Volusia County is to reduce the number of HIV infections, decrease nicotine use, increase vaccination for children, and we want to reduce infant mortality, which is a key measure of health. And even though the numbers of babies are dying, are less each year, the decline is not uniform, and particularly for Black babies. And most importantly, we are trying to ensure that all of our residents have opportunities for healthy living. Where we live matters. It's more about the community in which we live that influences our health. And it's a range of health factors that's important for good health. This provides a complete view of a person's health when it includes behaviors, clinical care, social and economic factors, and our physical environment. This is the social determinants of health. So the rankings provide us with an opportunity to look at our communities and find ways to make it easier to be healthy. This illustrates what we know when it comes to making people sick or healthy. In Volusia, heart disease and cancer continues to be the leading cause of death. More than 65% of our adults are either overweight or obese, and 20% smoke. So this demonstrates how the tobacco use, lack of exercise, and poor diet can impact the length of someone's life, as well as the quality of our life, which is the case for many of our residents. So from 2017 to 2018, our overall health factors ranking of 26 did not change. Remember, it's a comparison with other counties. So when another county or other counties improve their overall health outcome score, and Volusia doesn't really change much, our numbers may still decline. So for example, Duval County went from 55 to 44 last year. So our scores did improve in quality of life, clinical care, and socioeconomic factors based on the data collected, such as the number of poor physical health days or mental health days. We know about what's happening with the uninsured number, it's going down, and our unemployment rate, which was just shared with you. So housing, income, education, access to resources have a lot more to do with health than how often you see a doctor. United Way's ALICE report looks at those struggling to afford basic needs. In Volusia, 42%, or almost 90,000 households, live below the ALICE threshold. That's working poor families, single-family households, and individuals that earn less than what it costs to live. So our health department is working with our partners to create healthier places to live, learn, work, and play. We are seeking ways to improve population health by listening to our residents to shape and inform the interventions that is community-driven. For example, we're working with residents in our Midtown Daytona and Spring Hill to build healthy communities. When you consider who gets sick and who stays healthy, there's something more than chance or genetics. We are focusing on those groups of people who are experiencing more poor outcomes. We work to reduce smoking rates, especially around our youth and pregnant moms. So we've worked with 20 pregnant women and their partners to help them quit smoking and provide $25 diaper vouchers to those who attempt or succeed at quitting for up to 12 months after the baby's born. Children eat what families eat. So when families eat healthy, our children eat healthy. Our WIC program serves more than 10,500 participants. This includes pregnant women and women with children up to the age of 5 who have income at or below 185% of the federal poverty level. The family receives food supplements, nutrition counseling, and education. We also offer community programs, including nutrition education to youth and adults. In Volusia, there are more than 1,700 people living with HIV or AIDS. All the adolescents and adults living in our county should be tested to know their status. For persons at increased risk, they can take a daily pill, reducing their risk by 90%. And for persons newly diagnosed, they can seek treatment immediately, and that will improve their long-term outcome. This month, we're hosting the statewide Department of Health Florida Immunization Summit. It's going to be held this month in Daytona. So we're working together through our prevention efforts and partnerships to support our families, to get better jobs, to find ways to so fewer children are living in poverty and more children are enrolled in quality early childhood education. I appreciate the opportunity this morning to speak to you, and Donna will continue the presentation. The last slide of the presentation has the websites for all of the data that was discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Butler again. So some of what I'm going to share with you, you've heard over and over again, but I think this is really telling because the last part of this chart down here really clearly shows where county government fills in some of the gaps. So you're seeing we don't do education, but employment, income, family and social support, community safety, and housing and transit. So I want to brag on you all because of your continued commitment so that the public once again hears. Client Emergency Services, you spend almost $1.5 million annually helping almost 17,000 families. Pretty significant. Homeowner housing programs, $2.8 million. You've got a list of all the services that we've done. That's just in the past fiscal year. Rental housing, $2.8 million. Votran, you know how big that budget is, but the average rider, when surveyed, has an income of less than $10,000. That's troubling. 3.2 million fixed route and about 280,000 Gold Transit folks. So I wanted to put into perspective to you what those poverty guidelines that we constantly throw around mean. So if you're a family of 4, at 100% of the federal poverty guidelines, your family's making $25,100. Something usually has to give when you're only making that much. Even if you're at 150%, it's $36,900. It's not a lot of money. So poverty is really an issue. It affects all of these health indicators that you've heard talked about earlier. Health, housing, education, transportation are all areas that suffer when folks are in or facing poverty. So you all, my staff, others, served as a safety net for a lot of these folks with our partner agencies to help facilitate an opportunity to succeed. I want to talk to you about a new initiative that's happening countywide, but then also the county's participation in that. It's a new initiative called VCAN 2020, and it's been started by Food Brings Hope. Currently, children that are part of Food Brings Hope programs, Kids Zone and Teen Zone, receive bags of food for their family to last the weekend. You're familiar with free food at school time, free breakfast, free lunch, but then what happens on the weekend when you don't have enough to eat? So instead of just sending home enough food for a child, there's a bag that goes home with enough food to feed a family. They get about 3 pounds of meat, it's frozen so it's safe, and it goes home and helps a family not be hungry for the weekend. So the goal of VCAN 2020 is to be the first county in the country to eliminate youth ages 0 to 24 hunger and homelessness. And how do we say eliminate? Well, that's kind of hard. We're setting today, hopefully if all goes well, we'll set some numbers of where we reasonably think both of those numbers are. And we're going to try and work hard to meet that. But the goal is if someone calls and says, I need help, then we're going to be able to refer them somewhere where they can either get food to eat or have a place to rest. So, there's a new county pilot. I'm very excited about it. My staff, Community Assistance, Parks, Recreation, Culture, and Library Services, we've been coordinating with Halifax Urban Ministries. HUM is the organization that provides the food to Food Brings Hope to distribute. So we're going to develop a pilot program, we're in the midst of it already, to deliver backpacks of food to youth that are at our summer food and summer camp sites. So we have summer food sites already at many locations, but we happen to have them in our libraries. And then we also have summer campsites where we know that we already provide scholarship funds for some kids that can't otherwise afford to go to summer camp. So of course we'd like to have a bigger impact. We want to figure out a way that we can make this work. So we're going to have sites on both the east and west side. We're trying to coordinate with HUM to see which one works best. We're going to use some of our CSBG dollars because our human services manager told us where he came from. They actually buy backpacks. So a kid doesn't have that label of, I'm taking my bag home, you know, because I'm a poor, food insecure kid. Instead, they get a backpack. And it's just a little nicer, softer touch on how to be able to get that food home. So that backpack would provide enough food for a family to last the weekend. So we're going to start very small because we want it to make sure it's successful. But we're also going to start sharing some information in those bags that go home about resources that are available. So other ways to let people know that there are ways that they can get help and hopefully grow their family well. So hopefully we can maybe expand VCAN 2020's efforts throughout the school year. They serve about 350 families right now. At a minimum, there are about 29,000 food insecure children in our school system. And that's based on compilation of numbers from some of my data and school system data. That's a lot of kids that are hungry. So this is the additional information that Patricia was referring to, and that's our update.
Thank you very much. Billy, you have a question?
Sorry. Donna, you had given me a percentage of services that aren't being used or underutilized at one point. You were saying that there's these services that are available that are not being used. Do you remember that? You
I think
discussed.
that was regarding WIC. There was a lot of
Okay, that was with WIC. Okay.
Yes, one of our indicators at the health department for our WIC program is we look at the number of people that come in and determine that they're eligible, they're living at or below the 185% of the federal poverty level, and then we look to see how many are actually participating. So I mentioned 10,500 participants, and that's a fraction of those that have come in and determined that they're eligible. So we're trying to get to the root cause of that. What is it that makes it an inconvenience, a barrier? What's happening to those families that are not coming back? And so we know 2 or 3 things contribute to that. One is the WIC program provides baby formula for those parents who are not breastfeeding exclusively. And we know how expensive formula is. So they'll participate while the infant is in need of formula. Once they no longer need the formula, the remaining benefit isn't enough for them to have to take off from work and maybe lose those wages for that day, or maybe not have an option to have leave time to come in. So we look at earlier hours, afternoon, and being more in our community. That's one, is the formula. Another is the actual benefit. And again, how can I get there and take off from work if I don't have leave, or if I'm going to lose wages? So when you look to see what some of our families make, maybe a $40 food benefit really isn't sufficient enough for them to lose the wages for that morning, afternoon. So it's really, I think, a matter of making choices, and difficult choices for some of our families.
You know, the reason why I brought this whole thing up was that was very disturbing to me, to see that we are listed as 44th. I think we can do better. I know we are doing so much, and it's wonderful, and I'm proud of all the services that we are providing. But we're missing something. I don't know what it is, whether it's education, part of it or what, I just don't know what it is. But I think, well, I mean, how many community gardens do we have? And are they successful? Food is something that really, that hurts me. You know, when I did the food service with the Young Professionals Group, and we bagged 645,000 meals for children in this area to go to the schools in 2.5 hours. They were bagged. One meal was for rice and beans, and one was for oatmeal, and another one, I forget what that was. But they would get 3 meals to take home with them. You know, 645,000.
It's demographics.
Yeah.
It's,
Well,
it's demographics. It's a straight answer.
Yeah, but
Period.
there's got to be a better way. I just
So until you change the
can't
makeup of
accept
the
the
people that live here.
44%. I'd like to see us do better. Council
Member Denny's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Donna, this sounds like a really good program, and I've seen programs start and I've seen them end. I'm glad we're starting small. We're going to use which funds are we using?
Community Service Block Grant, it's for client
the
emergency
CFBG
services.
grant. Okay. So do we have leftover funds in that account every year?
I wouldn't say yes and no. It depends on for what particular area you're looking at.
So my question is, if we're going to start funding another program, what are we not funding?
It's a good question. We're not funding something. We have rollover funds every year, and it's going to be a very small portion of the budget. We regularly serve client emergency services with these funds.
Right, right.
The state has asked us to identify the biggest needs in our community, and largely that has been homelessness and making sure all those ancillary services are provided. We don't provide any other source of, so it's not going to have an increase in staffing or anything of that nature.
So our funds will go primarily for what in this program? Buying book bags?
It's going to be a very small portion. We're talking a very minimal amount of money compared to the amount that's in the grant.
Okay, so what are we looking at?
Well, we haven't budgeted that, but I don't think we're going to spend more than a couple $1,000s.
Okay. Again, I've served on the Children and Families Advisory Board and have looked at a lot of nonprofits, and we'll never fix it as much as we want to. We will never fix it because some of these unfortunate issues are family-based and home-based. And we do the best that we can. And Volusia's doing, as we've seen in your presentation, has done a really good job with the current initiatives that we have through the rental housing program, our homeowner housing programs, and our client emergency services. I want to make sure that the need that's already been identified and we're serving, that doesn't jeopardize that. But that being said, how are you going to determine if this pilot's successful? What's your benchmarks? What are you looking at?
Well, it's still in development. I don't know that we have actual parameters set yet. We've had one meeting. We've been going back and forth on how to do that. I don't know that you can actually, well, I'd prefer to come back to you because
we can't measure it. Can we really?
I'm not sure that you can ever truly measure whether you've fed every single hungry child or every food insecure child.
Well, it sounds like a really good program. I hope that it works, but I would ask you to stay on top of it because there's a difference between doing a good thing and the right thing, and that's always the balance that we have to strike with what we do. So thank you. I think let's hope it's successful.
Thanks, Donna.
Ms. Cusack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that we have to continue to try to make a difference. And I think, and this is another step in that direction, to be able to quantify, if you will, the outcomes, we may not see them for generations to come. But I think we have to continue to attempt to do these programs so that hopefully one child at a time we are making a difference on lifestyle changes as it relates to who has an opportunity to go to school, stay in school, what about the food choices that young people make. We have to continue to do our gardens. We have to continue to encourage families to become engaged in family meal times and talk about educational pieces. I think what we are as providers are a part of this solution that will help to have families become more engaged, if you will, in the outcomes that we're looking for. And how do we do that? By continuing to partner with organizations and with families so that we might be able to impact them with opportunities for jobs. When you don't have a job, there are many things that you feel that you can, it gives you, you don't feel good about yourself. I think, and the more we do to help is for economic development, encourage folk to pursue educational opportunities, all of those things. I think that the reason we score so low is that there are many areas that you cannot see the outcomes from a visual. You cannot quantify, you cannot put your hands on these outcomes. But when you see a decrease in the number of children that are being seen in the emergency rooms, for instance, something is going on in that household that has said that they are attacking nutrition. They are attacking, if you will, an opportunity for a child to just have a shower, have a safe place. The mental piece has to be attacked. And so mental health outcomes are not always measurable. And so I think we have to continue to do all that we can. Is it enough? It's never enough until every child and every family has a safe quality of life where they have good nutrition, opportunities for exercise and activities. And so we just have to continue to try to educate in every arena that we can. It's important that we don't lose sight on the fact of what we're doing, but continue to impact that by doing more, if you will, to help families as they present themselves in every arena, be it the schools, be it that the WIC office. That's something to look at. Is it possible that can we have maybe some type of program that you have pickup services that are not necessarily the traditional hours for those services, that parents might be able to go? How about being able to make non-meat meals, protein meals, like mac and cheese? So most kids like that. So these are some of the things that you just talk, every chance you get to talk to a person about nutrition, about being parenting skills. I think it all comes together at the end of the day to try to help us to be better stewards of each other. And I think we're on the right track in what we're doing. This is a good overview, if you will, of where we are, and we need to just build upon every opportunity that you have to talk about sexually transmitted diseases from generation to generation. Those are all things that you have to attack one at a time, and I think that we're doing our best to make an effort and impact on that. And at the end of the day, maybe hopefully our rankings will move up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I just said, kind of interrupting a comment, it is demographics. And if you look at St. Johns County, for example, which is number one in health, number one in education, and you look at their median income is about $70,000. Over 60% have a college degree. When you look at the demographic, those are things that we can't change, but what we can do is try to make a difference where we can. And every family that we're able to help to have food over the weekend is making a difference. I don't care how small it is. because, Billy, I get upset about people not
just-
eating.
Yeah, I know it. That just, not here, not in America, not in Volusia County. The demographics definitely, because that was one of the things I was going to ask you about, the surrounding counties. What are they doing that maybe we're not doing? And also, are we, I'm sure we are, but are we directly engaging the hospitals? I know some of the hospitals have been trying to have further aftercare. Are we engaging with them as to ideas and bouncing back things that maybe we're missing?
Two parts to your
That we could
question.
improve.
First part, our surrounding counties are better, 4, 9, and 14 for Flagler and Seminole, and Brevard respectively. Brevard is 25. So there's that in your presentation, and it goes to the demographics, the income levels, education levels, higher education specifically. And then the second part of your question regarding the hospitals and how I can speak to the health department and both hospitals, Halifax and Florida Hospital. We're one of the first counties in the state to actually do our community health needs assessment together. So historically, hospitals we're all three required to do a needs assessment of our community. And in Volusia, the decision was made a number of years ago to do it jointly. So there would be one needs assessment, and we would work collaboratively on making a difference in those priority areas. So Volusia has really, that we have above many other counties in the state, those efforts between community, health departments, and the hospital systems.
Okay. Thank you both for your presentations, and that will conclude item 6. And we'll move on to Dan Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to
Counsel.
recommend to you that we engage the law firm of Levin Papantonio to representation in opioid litigation. Jeff Gaddy with that firm is here today in the audience. And if you have questions of him, Mr. Mouget, that's how you say that name that's in the agenda item, Mougey, is in D.C. today on matters pertaining to this representation for other clients at this point. I think we've done a good job of trying to balance the interest of the county here. In that we've capped, with Levin's concurrence, we've capped the expenses at 10%. We've provided for I think we've reduced the risk of by sharing expenses here. We've have not capped the rate as the state does for contingency fees, but I think what the counterpart for that is the cap on the expenses. We've chosen to engage Levin Papantonio in part because of the mass of work that they've have undertaken. It allows for the sharing of expenses. There is you will be in the in the multi-district litigation ongoing in Ohio at this point. That's really where the court has gathered up a number of these cases for purposes of discovery and pretrial motions. What's the downside? Well, there's an outside risk that you could end up paying cost in this matter. I don't want to minimize that, but you won't pay anything to Levin Papantonio unless you win. Those costs would be if you were to go not settle the case, if you were to try it and to lose, or on pretrial motions, and I think we're going to be past that point. Some counties have chosen to go with to pursue claims that under fee shifting statutes. That's not the case here. That would be if you lose, that you end up paying fees. So we may not have quite the upside of some counties that have chosen to go a different route, but I also think we don't have some of the downside that there might be experienced by some other counties. Levin Papantonio is deep into this litigation. They and the firms that are involved are spending quite a lot of money on this case. It's not a guarantee that the county will prevail. There'll be defenses argued by the companies that are involved, but I think this is an effort worth undertaking, and it bears tangentially on the discussion which just preceded this, but in a different way for the health outcomes here in Volusia County. So if you have any questions of Mr. Gaddy, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we think we have negotiated a contract that is fair to the county and fair to the law firms that are involved.
You have a question of him or Dan?
No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to have a discussion.
On what?
On this?
Oh. I guess there are no questions. Ms. Post?
The opioid issue, I wanted to make a point because this is litigation that we're talking about going into about this, so I wanted to discuss how important this is for our county. I've talked with a number of attorneys on staff at length about this. This has been somewhat I would say my pet project since I've come in. Talking with people on the national level with the Domestic Policy Council, the state level with all the proposed legislation. As a board member of the Florida Association of Counties, their summer conference this year is going to be solely on opioids and the effect that they're having on the counties. And I know that our assistant county attorney is hopefully going to attend that as well. I know he's attended things in the past on that. And also as chair of the Public Safety Council Committee and drug court committees, this is an extremely important area to me. 233 people died of an overdose in Volusia County in 2016, and if you think about that, that's an astonishing number of people to have died of an overdose. That's death. But we have many, many more overdoses where we revive them and they come back from these opioid addictions in our county. And now that we have Narcan, I'm sure we're going to have much more revivals from that. But with the extensive level of persons in every facet of this issue, from the companies, the doctors, the facilities, all of them putting money before people, I'll say I'm absolutely in favor of us joining other facets of government and jumping in on this and trying to recoup some of the monies that we're spitting out. I mentioned earlier that 63% of the corrections budget goes towards mental and drug issues. So it does have a great effect in Volusia County. I know that there are some people who don't realize how great of an effect it does have, but it truly does. And so I would like to, I'm making a motion that we follow through on this agreement with Levin, Papantonio, Thomas, Mitchell, Rafferty, and Proctor, PA, for representation in the opioid litigation.
Second.
Made by Post, second by Patterson. Any objection or further discussion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And we will now move to the public participation portion. I have no cards of anyone wishing to speak, so we'll go directly to matters not on the agenda, and we'll start with the county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I've sent you a copy, I did get a letter from the school board and from the superintendent in terms of the request for the $2 million for school resource officers. So we did get what we'd asked for, and if you want me to move forward with that, I'd be glad to do that. I've talked to the county attorney. We believe if you are interested in moving forward on this issue, we could be prepared in the first meeting in June.
Council.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Dennis.
My only comment on this, a lot has happened between that meeting and this meeting. And one thing that we have now looming in the air that we've not taken any further at this point is whether or not there's going to be a special election in 2019. And Supervisor of Elections Lisa Lewis said yesterday at the Elected Leaders Roundtable, at a minimum, if it's just a mail-in ballot, that's 500,000. If we go to the actual polls, it's going to be probably, a whole lot more. So I think we've got some costs that we may be incurring as a county that we weren't at the last one. So I'm a little more hesitant at this point, but that's my input. I'd like to hear what the rest of the council thinks.
Ms. Denny's, I would suggest, though, that she was pointing out what the bill would be to cost us. Obviously, the special election, you could decide whether, if all the communities want to chip in on that, if they all want to do a special election. So, I mean, I can't see why we would be the only ones that would pay for that.
I think she said the maximum amount would be at least
That's right.
500. I don't think it would be more than that. I think that
For
was.
mail-in.
Pardon?
For mail-in.
Right.
I think she did say then, though, that the election period, whether you did it either way, she said there would be some savings, not significant on mail-in. Well, we can ask her. It doesn't matter. There are additional expenses. And Ms. Post, you had a question?
Well, I'm up for putting it on the agenda for discussion. I think it's definitely the elephant in the room, and we absolutely need to discuss it.
Okay.
And come to some sort of
Is it a motion to put this on an upcoming agenda? Is there a second? Is there a second to put this up on the agenda for discussion? We're discussing it kind of now.
Yeah.
I guess,
Not at length, though.
no.
This is a pretty in-depth discussion, I think.
Here's part of my concern on the issue. They don't know where they're going to go.
Yeah.
You correctly pointed out at the last meeting, the county cannot provide the deputies for that, the 51 additional that are going to be. The expense is they're going to have to look at different ways to comply with the state, with the $2 million they have from the state. And I talked to Superintendent Russell briefly, very briefly, just because I'd had a similar thought that he did, and that would be to use retired deputies, police officers, and so forth, which is a possibility. I even further suggested, which they said they would have to form their own force, would be to have contract with a security firm made up of that. But you can't arrest without being certified, so therein lies that rub. But until they know what they're going to do and how they're going to fund it, are we not better off to wait and decide? Because if they decide that they're going to have a way to fund it, is it still going to be the same amount as opposed to going? Because the numbers that they were looking at, the 6.5 million cost, was based upon a deputy, full benefits and full force that they were going to need. And while the safety is important, I don't know that time is necessarily of the essence for us until they can tell us exactly what they're going to need. They have requested it, but they haven't shown what their needs are.
Well, then I would withdraw that motion then.
Okay.
And then I would suggest that we make sure that we at least respond to them in some official way, stating that, so that we can sort of close out this issue until there is more information, and so that's not left hanging.
Because I think the request that I think came was partly verbal, that their only request was going to be for funding of the officers and not for other cost, fencing.
That's in their letter.
But we've gotten two letters.
Yeah.
Yep. So the second one said it's not for that. It's only for the funding of the officers.
Right, and they asked for a specifically grant to them so that they could use it however they wanted to use it, so that they're not, so they could do specifically what you, Mr. Kelly, asked for.
Right. And I think that if we can come to an agreement to discuss it, when we say, they tell us that they're gonna need $4 million, the state's provided $2 million, then we will try to see what we can do to help to provide the other for the funding of the officers, the SROs, or what do you call them?
Can we send them something stating that, so that we're just,
Well, we don't know, I don't know that they know when it's gonna be, but
Mr. Chair, I agree. We're not ready to make this, I'm not ready to sign off on $2 million that's coming from wherever we're going to find it, for something we don't really know what's going to be used for. It's not in detail, and, I mean, have they looked at even using retired veterans?
no, they can't, because
but-
they don't, that's what I suggested to them.
I'm not quite ready to rip out $2 million from us at this point and not knowing where it's coming from, but I'm just not ready to sign off on that.
Ms. Cusack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm of the same opinion. I'm not ready to do that, and I was not ready last council meeting, and I'm not ready now, because there are too many unknowns, and to commit to $2 million when you don't know all of these unknowns, I don't think it would be prudent upon us as a council to do that. So I would say that we would table this discussion until further information can be obtained and a direction or course of action can be given to us by the school board. And if it's appropriate, Mr. Chair, I would make that in the form of a motion.
Okay, is there a second? And any objection to going forward with that motion? Hearing none, the motion carries, and we will you can send him a letter on behalf of the council that we are not taking action at this time.
Okay.
And I think that would be all we need to say.
Okay.
Do you, council agree? Okay.
Two other things. One is, after the discussion today on this issue of impact fees, two things that jump off. First of all, I do think I was a bit offended by the newspaper that said that somehow my council was acting like, oh, this is so complex, people won't understand this. Just to point out, of the 16 cities, one city has no impact fees, but the other 15 have 46 different impact fees. So there are a lot of implications, not counting the level of impact fees that we have for different things. So that you can have a discussion, because I heard very clearly you want to have this discussion, I would suggest a jumping off point be maybe, the earliest we probably could put it on is the first meeting in June. I couldn't put it on May, we got too much with the zoning, but you could put it on June if you'd like, and then I need some direction as to just a starting point. But generally in the past, and I think this was advisable, we used a consultant, because that way there's not an issue about believability of our numbers. But I don't know where you want to start. I don't know anything about what the cities are going to do. And so I can put something on for June if you'd like, just to start a discussion about, if you're going to give us direction on the administrative side, I need to start understanding what that direction is.
I guess you've heard direction from each of us that said that we want to discuss it.
And that's why I'm suggesting
you heard specific.
The first meeting in June.
You heard specifics from one that wanted the information about the cities. I'm not so concerned about monitoring or telling the cities what to do, personally, and what they do with their impact. It's nice to know that, but when you add up, and this is why no one said that people couldn't understand it. I mean, people posted on social media that you think we're so stupid. Well, they said that. My mother taught me better than to call anybody stupid. I don't do that. I did say it is complex, and that if you understood it, you would understand why impact fees are not going to address the issues that the sales tax will. And that is pretty simple. That's just straightforward. It won't solve it. But having said that, to get to your starting point, knowing what all the impact fees are by the other cities could be important for the people to understand. I understand them. Those of us who have served on the cities know what they are. We also know how specific they are and what they can be used for. You want to improve your recreation area, you better prove that there's been a bigger demand because of the influx of people, not just because of the people that are currently there. So it is that you have to weigh and measure what they're used for. I'm concerned about the impact fees for infrastructure, water, flooding, and this type of thing. That's the ones that are paramount to us. I think it would be good for the public to see the various impact fees that they are already having to pay. I mean, it is important. And the fact that if they were doing their job, some of the issues we have wouldn't be where they are. But it's not just what the county transportation impact fee is cannot solve the problem for every community. So that's where we go. Having a meeting on June 1st, the first meeting in June, I don't think it is the first, but whatever the meeting
I think
is
it's the
in
5th.
June. Pardon?
5th.
Yes. So having a meeting on the 5th and having a separate.
We'll have a separate, I'll schedule a discussion for this subject. We're not trying to tell the cities what to do, but I think listing this out, of the 46 things I mentioned, had nothing to do with water and sewer.
Right.
So, and you have, for example, city transportation fees that have not been adjusted since 2005.
Right.
So that whole thought was part of, if you saw Rick's or Rob's numbers, it was because the housing starts fell so badly off. So that's why they have not come back like they did. Remember, if you remember, we went to 0 and came back third. Flagler never came back. So anyway, I'll schedule it for the first meeting in June, because I think you want, at least I thought that we have to have a discussion. That was the earliest I think I can get it on and make it fit your schedule.
I think if the public could see that going forward, because what they're responding to is the last year or so growth that you're seeing, if they can see that there's additional impact fees that are going to address those needs going forward, and that the sales tax is going to help correct the sins of the past, then maybe we have a better chance of everyone understanding that it is a necessary way, or I don't want to say raise property taxes, because that's not a nice thing to say, but to get the funding to correct that, it has to come from somewhere. The gas tax can't do it, the impact fees can't do it, and if you want to correct those, let's look at it combined and let people look at it. So do that for the discussion in June. That works for us, I think.
Okay.
First week, June 5th.
June 5th. And then, just on a separate ironic note, I just thought you might find this interesting. Where I came from in Montgomery County, today they're talking so that they can May 15th, which is their meetings were on Tuesday too, put a 0.25% sales tax on the initiative, on the ballot. So what a small world, huh? No, what a small world. So I couldn't have escaped it even if I stayed there.
Okay. Thank you. That's it. Mr. Eckert, you good? No, you have a question. I know you have something. No.
Yes, I'm getting some side comments over here. Yes, sir, I do. With regard to the Daytona Beach Shores, the issue we have pending with them, we have here if we would like to refresh your memory, the proposal we sent to them and their agreement, and then the summary we assembled for you, that comparison side by side. Really what I want to ask you today is how you want to go about deciding this issue. Do you, some council members have said that they prefer another meeting with the Shores. Others have said, that really they think that the best way to try to resolve this would be to go to mediation, which is a step that you'll be required to take as you pursue the conflict resolution process. And so that's the question I'm posing to you. Do you given the Shore's response to us, do you wish to proceed to mediation, or do you think there's wisdom in trying to meet again?
I'll go ahead and start since I was one of the ones as well. As far as the great divide is, and the next step would be to go to mediation, discussing the differences, which they came back with something much greater than what originally was put out there. I don't see how you can talk it into any better unless somebody knows something that I don't know, that there are people willing to pull back from that. And if they are, then they need to come to us and say, we're willing to come off of this. I mean, to sit and discuss and rehash everything all over again, I'm not for it, but that's just me. And if we need to vote on this at some point, we can. Ms. Wheeler, let's try to move this along in a rapid fashion, and maybe if state what you want to do and go.
Can't always be rapid, but I'll push for it.
Try.
I would like to see another meeting. I hate it that we're where we are, because I think we all left the last meeting on both sides thinking it was resolved. And I would like to have another meeting that we sit there, and before we leave, have it, all of us sign it if we need to, saying this is our understanding of where we're leaving this at this point and what's the next step. Obviously it wasn't clear to someone in their staff what we thought we all had agreed on, and that would be I'm all about communication.
Another meeting. Ms. Post.
It's not
Mr. Patterson.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go to mediation.
Motion is made and seconded to go to mediation with the Shores. Any objection to the motion? Pardon? Motion approved, but objecting is Councilmember Wheeler. And Ms. Cusack, I'm sorry, I didn't.
I thought that we were all going to express where we were. I can go with the mediation, but I also are of the opinion that if we can work through this and have it outlined by both entities, then I'll be willing to do that. But if the majority think that we're at an impasse, that mediation is the way that we should go, I can deal with that also. So
Okay.
I'm flexible in that.
And I'm flexible. I'm hoping that by them seeing that we're willing to go to mediation, that they may come back with something, and we would certainly give them, I would think, Dan, we could do that. If they came back, even though we put them on notice, I would believe that they could come back and say, or not.
Well, yes,
They
the
could.
process, the mediation is a public meeting, and we'll make our best efforts to resolve that. It's an unusual mediation, and it is conducted in the public. I'm hopeful we could still resolve this, but I would say that you left with the last meeting with an approach that said you would try to not work around the issue of authority, and the Shores Agreement asserts their authority. So we're going to have to find a way to address that during the mediation.
Okay.
If we can.
And that would be at the mediation. We could wind up that being only more legal binding than just another meeting.
Well,
which is what a mediation is.
The mediation, the process would be that that you would come, and we would come back to the council and say we request you approve this deal, or we think we've reached impasse.
Okay. I think that because the vote was, count you as yes, 6-1. Okay. Vote was 6-1. Is that it for you?
Yes, sir.
Today we start with Dr. Lowry.
I'm good.
Mr. Patterson.
I'm fine.
I'm hungry. Ms. Post. Oh, sorry. Ms. Post.
I just wanted to say with Rob Earhart mentioned in the quarterly unemployment statistics that this morning I posted on my Facebook page, the Volusia County job openings. We actually have a ton of job openings, probably at least 20, 25 that I saw on there, and they're from entry level all the way up to certified. So if you are looking for a job, please go on our website. And the other thing, I had a question. Has the sheriff's office, I don't want to get down in the weeds, but I just wanted to ask the flat question. Has the sheriff's office asked for any additional funding in regards to the schools issue thus far? Okay, all right. And just again, I would love to have a workshop to discuss our priorities as a council so that we can all actually sit down and discuss that. I'm asking for that again.
Okay. Ms. Wheeler. Ms. Cusack. Ms. Denny's. You got to be hungry.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock everywhere, I think, right now. Just one issue that I'd like council to discuss and bring back for another time, but I'd just like to bring up the item now. On our ECHO funding, we're only spending about half of what we take in grants. So let's just round it out. Like we take in $6 million in revenue and we give out, what, $3 million? Let's just say half of it, or 40%, whatever the numbers are. The previous council, and I don't know if it was 14 or 15, we did a resolution that all of the leftover dollars not spent in ECHO would be earmarked for a boardwalk fund. Well, there's been no talk of a boardwalk or anything brought forward. So what I'd like this council to consider, and maybe put it on an agenda item, is to consider reversing that ordinance or resolution and extending, we could actually extend the life of ECHO, even though we stop collecting, I think in 2020. We could effectively extend the life of ECHO 3 to 5, maybe 6 years by putting the leftover dollars, just leaving them in the pot, and then allowing our nonprofits in our cities to keep applying for grants for ECHO until the pot runs dry, until there's $0 left. And I've been thinking about this for a long time because it's been brought up by several people, and whether or not we're going to put that initiative back on. I don't see any overwhelming request for that to happen, but this would be a way to extend the life of ECHO and get back to the original intent of what the voters were passed for ECHO, to keep it environmental, cultural, historical, and outdoor. Jamie, is that I don't know. I think our resolution was 14 or 15 in ECHO. I think it expires in 2020 or 2021.
Actually, the last year of collection will be 2021 because we began collecting in 2001. That was passed in 2000, but the collection begins the following year.
That makes sense.
So you've got a few more years left in the collection. Your resolution was passed in August of 2015. You set aside $2.5 million a year for grants, $1 million for trails, and the remaining money to be put into an account earmarked for the boardwalk.
But we have spent over 2.5. This council has funded more than 2.5 in grants. We've not kept that ceiling static.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
We've not.
You also made
not funded.
You also made it clear that that was just a place to park the money, and that any thought of going forward on the boardwalk would have to be brought forward again.
Do we know what the balance of that is currently?
Really, what the balance is, give us the numbers. Can you get? We'll get it for you.
Well,
The balance is the balance based on the fact that people did not put in programs that you didn't have requests that qualified. So that really, so while it was labeled that way, it was to try and place the money somewhere so you knew it was in the account.
Certainly.
But you still would have had to make a conscious effort to put it into a boardwalk project.
So what I'd like council, if it's okay with you, is to maybe bring that back for an actual agenda item for discussion, and then we can see what the numbers are, what's in there, and then go forward and effectively extend the life of ECHO without increasing a tax. I think that would be a good faith act for our citizens on the ECHO account, And,
If you're gonna make it that specific, I can't support bringing it back as an agenda item. I would be willing to bring back the agenda item for discussion on ECHO, but not a discussion with the sole purpose of extending the life of it. I mean, that could come up, but I think we all need to have, I mean, we can express it then, but I mean, if you want to look and see where ECHO is, what if I said, well, let's just stop collecting it and give the money to the people? You're tying it to where you want to extend the life by taking the money from some place that it may go. I would rather have it go to a future boardwalk for the economic and the value personally. And there is talk in the private sector of that happening. And there has been, and with everything else that's going on, to say, I don't want to specifically say, we're going to do this and we're going to take it away from a boardwalk thing. But right now, it's a placeholder for the funds that are not being spent by qualified applications.
But I still think, Mr. Chair, that we should have a discussion and
Absolutely.
not be limited as to what we would include in that discussion.
Well, exactly.
And that's what you're.
That's what I'm saying. Let's have a discussion on the ECHO and what we want to do with it.
And that is one of the things that we may be considered.
And we
is
can
what
say that, or you
Ms.
can
Dennis
say
said. I
you
mean,
want to extend the
I just
life.
don't think we can
Or you can,
tie hands of council members as to what we can
I can't say.
and can't say.
That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Another thing we could consider is maybe using the leftover money that we have right now and not charging the taxpayers for 1 year on the ECHO fund.
That was another thing. So that's why I would say, rather than get into the details now, Councilmember Denny's, let's have an open discussion agenda item on the discussion item on ECHO.
No, I am all for that, but I am looking towards redirecting those dollars that have not been expended and several councils previously, Mr. Kelly, when this boardwalk was originally brought up to council. I remember that day, I remember the conversation, and I voted for it only because council was told at that time that grants would be found, and I think we hired a consultant. I think we paid a consultant to go out and find grants for the boardwalk. So the agreement at that time of council and discussion years ago was that the boardwalk would go forward. We would put money in for a consultant. That consultant would go back and find the grants and the funds to build the boardwalk. Never once was it said at that meeting or at that agreement time, and that was my vote. I made that caveat at the time that I didn't want our dollars to be used. So I think this is a fair discussion to have. I think it's a timely discussion, however council wants to go. But I think it would be a very wise thing if we could extend the life of ECHO grants programs within our community for our cities and the nonprofits without having to incur any more taxes would be a win-win for everybody.
Okay.
That's just my thought. We
Okay,
can have that
and
discussion.
let's have the discussion on it, and each of us may have different ideas, may have different
It can move or
priorities, and
transform,
and
sure.
from all of that discussion, something may come out of it that none of us are thinking about right now. So let's have the discussion on it, and who knows what may come out of it, maybe something just absolutely great.
Mr. Chair, when do you want to have that discussion?
Oh, why don't we just tie it in with the, I don't know. Let's talk about that Thursday.
What's Thursday?
That's when we have the meeting.
No, what meeting? You mean Tuesdays?
You mean the
You-
one-on-one?
What do you want to do it before we set the agenda? You want
Oh,
to
no, I'm just saying,
when-
you're all saying, I'm trying to get agreement.
When do you want to put it on? That's right. You have to schedule when it could go.
Correct. I thought the larger, here's what we could
You
do.
said wait till July or August.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't
No
have,
problem.
this isn't
Doesn't
a
have to be this next week.
time-sensitive.
That's all I needed to know.
Okay,
I'll just put it on.
we'll put it on.
No problem.
When we have some time.
No problem.
Without backing everything else up.
That's why I just asked, because I thought maybe there was more of immediacy to it. Okay.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it, thank you.
We're going to get out of here before 12:47 ends. Thank everybody for their hard work on today, especially on the sales tax and everything that we all had worked hard for, and appreciate the work of those that did work to get it together. And I'm confident that something will come back, and it too could even be better than what we had. Meeting adjourned at 12:48.